Thanks. I'll try to start YouTube. Let's see if it works this time. No, I'm unable to start it. Just maybe you can just start. We will have to give them a recorded version.
Okay, okay. Hello everyone. So in last lecture we saw embeddings, word embeddings, and today we'll start with the language modeling. So language modeling is basically it is used to predict the next words. A language model learns to predict the probability of sequence of words. So in sequence of words here, sequence matters. So if you have given a number of words, then its sequence matter. Like for example, the cat is small and the small is the cat, so their meanings are different. That is why here sequence matters. The language model actually a grammar of language, as it gives the probability of word that will follow. So probability of fifth word given its previous four word. So language model predicts the fifth word given previous four words. So in machine translation, for example, we take one example of a machine translation. You take in a bunch of words from a language and convert these words into another language. Now there can be many potential translation that a system might give you, and you will want to compute the probability of each of this translation to understand which one is the most accurate. So for example, in Android application, we have a language translation applications, right? So the language translation application also shows us various alternatives, and depends on that alternatives, in our mind we calculate the probability of different sentences, right? So here also we in the language translation it gives a number of alternatives, and the probability of which alternative is highest is the correct result. Okay, so this ability to model the rules of a language as a probability gives great power for NLP related tasks. So there are different applications of language modeling. We'll see machine translation, then spell correction, speech recognition, summarization, question answering, sentiment analysis, part of speech tagging, parsing, optical character recognition, handwriting recognition, and information retrieval. These are some applications of language modeling. So some of them we will see in details, like in tomorrow's lecture I will give example of sentiment analysis, and we'll go through code and how to build a model, how to embed the words, and we'll see all this in details. And in the next tutorial, we can see parts of speech tagging. So now, where exactly language models used? So let's take an example. Guess the words. So if we don't have any prior information, we can't predict any word, right? So if we have one previous word, like in a here you can see some me, and then to predict the next word, so there are a number of alternatives. So depend on one previous word, we cannot calculate the correct probability for next word. Then if we have given two previous word, pick me, then we might predict the next word, pick me up, right? Because we know this information in prior, we read something about this. That is why we can predict pick me up. So whenever we have given previous information, then we can predict the next information. So from this example, you can see that language model is required to represent the text to form understand from a machine point of view. So to complete the NLP task, we must provide a measure to enable comparison operations and thus assessment method for grading our models. So in language model, we normally use assessment method as a probability, and probability is the measure. This involves all kind of tasks. So let's take one example, like probability of tall man is always greater than probability of large man, but it depends on the previous information which you already have. So that depends on your training data. We can say the probability of tall man is greater than the probability of large man. Language models are used in machine translation. So translating a sentence saying about height, it would be probably state that as large might be referred to the weight or its a general appearance. Thus, it is not as preferable as tall. Spelling correction. Spell correcting sentences. Put your name into a form so that the probability of name into form is always greater than probability of name into from. Then in speech recognition, for example, we in pronunciation we can for take one example like coal miners and coal miners. These are similar pronunciation, but depends on your previous knowledge. We can say probability of coal miners is always greater than probability of coal miners, right? I have no idea. So similar example, no idea and no idea. So these are some examples, and it is also used in summarization, question answering, sentiment analysis. And in daily life or every day we use language modeling, like on when we chat on WhatsApp, when we type something, it predicts the next word. On Google search also, when we try to type something or search something, then it predicts the next sentence or next word. Probabilistic language modeling. The probability of sentence. So how to calculate the probability of sentence? The probability of sentence is the joint probability of all the words which came in that sentence. So it is equal to probability of W1 to Wn, and Wi is the word in that sentence. Now it is important to find the probability of upcoming word. It is an everyday task made example while typing your mobile keyboard. We will settle the conditional probability of W4 depending on all previous words. So how to calculate the probability of W4? So it depends on all its previous uh, previous words. So probability of W4 given W1, W2, W3. And how to compute the joint probability? So it's a probability of W1 into probability of W2 given W1 into probability of W3 given W1, W2, probability of W4 given W1, W2, W3. And this is a probability chain rule. So in general, we can write probability chain rule. So here is the equation. Probability of W1 to Wn equal to probability of W1 into probability of W2 given W1 up to probability of Wn given W1 to Wn. And you can see one example how we calculate the probability for particular sentence. So probability of its water is so transparent equal to probability of its, then into probability of water given its, probability of its given two previous word, that is its and water, into probability of so, that is given its three previous word, and so on. Now, in general, how to calculate this conditional probability? So, in general, we know the formula for conditional probability. So, probability of A given B equal to joint probability, that is probability of A intersection B divided by probability of B, right? This general formula is used here to calculate the probability of next word. So probability of W5 given previous word equal to count of W1 to W5 divided by count of W1 to W4. But this gives us too many possible sequences to ever estimate. So imagine how much data occurrences of each sentences we would have to get to make this count meaningful. So if there is a big corpus, then calculating such a probability is cumbersome operations and it will require a huge computing. So to cope up this issue, we can simplify by applying the Markov assumptions, which states that it is enough to pick only one or couple of previous words as a prefix. So instead of calculating product of W1, then probability of W2 given W1, then probability of W3 given previous two words. So instead of that, you can directly use only previous keywords and then you can product them like product of probability of I given its previous keywords only. So where k is the number of previous tokens that can be considered. So in next slide you can understand this better. So n-gram model. This is a language model. An n-gram model. N-gram is a continuous sequence of items, which in this case is the word in text. The n-gram depends on the size of prefix. So definition of n-gram is an n-gram is a sequence of n tokens. So let's consider one example. I love reading blogs about NLP. So there are n-grams. N-grams, n stands for a number 1, 2, 3, 4. So if n is 1, then it's a unigram model. If n is 2, then it's a bigram model. If n is 3, then it's a trigram model. So what is unigram? Unigram means 1 gram is a one word sequence. So we can split this about sentence, this sentence I love reading blog about NLP into a sequence of single word. So I love reading blogs about NLP. And then how to calculate the probability of ith word. So it's a just product of independent probability of independent words. So it's a product of probability of WI. So similarly for bigram models, it's a 2 gram. It's a 2 word sequence of words. So you can see here, I love, then love reading blogs. So probability of ith word can be computed as it's a product of probability of WI into WI minus 1. So WI given previous word. Similarly, in trigram model, we calculate the probability of next word giving its previous two words. Okay, so these are the types of n-gram models. So n could be anything. So, but in general, we use trigram models. So it gives a better accuracy.
Kaveri, I had a doubt in this.
Yeah.
So in this, are we assuming that like for whichever n gram, so 1 gram, 2 gram, or 3 gram, we are assuming that that part of word is independent of the like you get right. So in 1 gram, W2 would be independent of W1.
Yes, exactly. So
Assuming
1 gram, if we use 1 gram model, it just randomly gives you the output. So it is of no use. But in theory, we represent it's an n-gram. That is why I have given it's a unigram model. But in practice, we never use unigram models.
so let's talk about 2 gram. So 2 gram probability of W3 would be independent of probability of W1, but it would depend
Yes.
on probability of W2 or
Yes,
W.
exactly.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, suppose in the bigram, if we consider the first sentence of first word, I love. So there is no previous word. So we choose only the probability of I love, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that is why here we are using only previous word. So we'll see how to use a letter information also, but in this models we use a previous information only.
Okay. Thank you.
So this is one example. From example, we can learn the n-gram models. So this example is taken from the corpus of Shakespeare books, and then Wall Street Journal, then Thomson Reuters. Depending on the corpus, machine will run that vocabulary. Machine can sound like a Shakespeare. So in Shakespeare, you can see these different words. So in general, we can't see these words, but in Shakespeare, we can see this word, and that is why our machine, depending on its training data, he learn these new words, and it can generate or it can predict the next word. Okay. And these n-gram models are a statistical based model, and we will see the machine learning based model also, the deep neural network based models as well. So the estimation of n-gram model probabilities. So estimation can be done with maximum likelihood estimate. So probability of wi given its previous word equal to count of wi comma wi minus 1 divided by count of wi minus 1. So it's a condition, again a conditional probability which we can represent in a count form. And in general, we can represent this probability as a product product of all components, that is probability of wi given its previous word. So probability of particular sentence is equal to product of probability of word I given its previous word I minus 1. Okay. So in practice, the outcome sorry the product has a more computation than addition. So how we can convert this product into addition? So using logarithm, we can convert this product into addition. That is why we use log to calculate this probability. So when we apply log on this product, it will give us a summation. So you can see log of probability of w1 to w1 is approximately equal to summation of log of probability w1 to wi minus 1. So here why we use addition or why we use log? So here we don't want the exact value of its probability. Means I mean we just want which probability is greater than which one. So that is why it's a monotonically increasing function log. That is why we can use log instead of simple probability.
What does the function count do?
Sorry.
What does the function count do? Like what is count?
Count is number of words wi and wi minus 1 come together divided by total number of times wi minus 1 came in corpus.
Just a frequency, regular meaning.
Yeah. Yes. And also for language model, we calculate the perplexity. So perplexity is if it is lower, then that means your model is better. So best model is the one that best predicts the unseen test set. So or assign and average the probability to all sentences that is seen. seen. Or perplexity is the inverse probability. So it's the inverse probability 1 upon probability of w1 to wn of the test set normalized by the number of words. More specifically can be defined by the following equation. So perplexity we can define as probability of w1 to w1 raised to 1 upon n. So like we calculate the cross entropy for other models, right? So this is a similar type of calculations, or we can say a measure, which gives whether your model is giving a better accuracy or not. Okay, and its formula is this: 1 upon probability of W1 to Wn. Suppose a sentence consists of, so this one is example, so how to calculate the perplexity. So suppose a sentence consists of random digits 0 to 9. What is the perplexity of this sentence by a model that assigns an equal probability? So probability, equal probability for 10 digits is 1 upon 10 to each digit, and that this is how we can calculate its perplexity. Entropy of language. So we all know this entropy formula. So how to calculate the entropy of sequence of words? So entropy is denoted by H, and entropy for W1 to Wn equal to minus summation of probability of W1 to Wn into log of probability of W1 to Wn. And the entropy for per word just divided by n. So it is equal to minus 1 upon n into h of W1 to Wn. Then what is cross entropy? So cross entropy HPM of a true distribution. So P is a true distribution which is already given, and model distribution is M, that is we have predicted something. So M is given by model. So cross entropy for P and M equal to minus summation of probability of X into log M of X. So P of X and M of X. P is already given distribution and M is which is given by your model. Lower the cross entropy is the closer it is to a true distribution. So if your cross entropy is lower, that means you are closer to true distribution. Then cross entropy of sequence of words, it is again 1 divided by n and summation of probability W1 to Wn into log m of W1 to Wn. And what is the relationship between perplexity and entropy? So perplexity is equal to 2 raised to entropy. Now, what are the limitations of n-gram approach to language model? So it has a few drawbacks. The higher the value of n, the better is the model usually, but this leads to a lots of computation overhead that requires a large computation power in terms of RAM. So let's consider, if we consider n-gram models and that n is very large, that means your probability of particular word is depends on its previous n words, and if n is large, then obviously your computation for probability is large, and that is why it requires computation powers, large computation power. The n-grams are a sparse representation of language. So this is because we build a model based on the probability of word co-occurring. So this is why it is sparse representation, because we calculate the probability for particular bunch of words in the corpus. So it will give zero probability to all the words that are not present in the training corpus. So if particular word is not present in your corpus, then language model give it a zero probability. So it will not predict that word. Now these are the statistical language models. One example is the n-gram. So let's see other language models which is based on deep learning or the machine learning. So recurrent neural network. So why not a standard neural network? So there is the architectural difference in recurrent neural network and the standard neural network. But why we are not using standard neural network? Because in natural language processing,
Hello.
your input size is not always fixed. So for example, in one sentence contains 4 words or other sentence might contain 5 words or the 10 words, right? So your input size is not fixed, but as you have already seen for a standard neural network, we define an input dimension. So input dimension is fixed for standard neural network, but that is not case in the NLP. Second thing is we will not be able to share features learned across the different positions of a text if we use a standard neural network. So, so once you see the recurrent neural network architecture, then you can understand what is sharing of features. So we share a same weight vector amongst a different timestamp of an word. So you can share a weight vector for first word, the similar weight vector we can use for a second word. RNN are designed to take a series of input with no predetermined limit on size. So in RNN is designed for that only. We can pass any length of sequence to RNN. RNN reduce the number of parameters in the model because we are sharing weight vector across the number of words or the number of time step, time steps. That is why it reduces the number of parameter in the model. We'll see its architecture. So in this figure, you can see this is the architecture of recurrent neural network. So this first shows unfolded structure, and the second one shows the folded structure. So in folded structure, there you can see a loop. So recurrent neural network takes two inputs. One is ht minus 1 and its current input. Ht minus 1 is the input which is coming from its uh, previous timestamp or the previous layer, and xt is the current input. So you can see here, so here is not h2, it's ht minus 1. Sorry, okay. And here you can see we have shared whs across the all words or the all steps. So whs, 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 that is, here we can say it's a sharing of parameters, and it reduces the number of parameters for the model. Here also you can see wxh, which is shared for all words, and also why is shared for all outputs. Okay. The figure introduces the RNN architecture where each vertical rectangular box is a hidden layer as a timestamp T. So it contains only one hidden layer. So one input layer, hidden layer, and this output layer. So you you just can't compare this architecture with standard neural network because its architecture is completely different. So this is the architecture. So when we see it code wise, so it contains only a single cell, and we iterate through a loop. So that is why it can accept any length of sequence. Okay, any doubts in this? Because it's some a different type of architecture than a standard neural network.
Ma'am, I have one doubt. Like, it's a RNN similar to a functional API, like how functional API works. Like, takes the input, multiple inputs and outputs, and it's also sharing weights of the different network with like concatenation, basically.
Okay. Actually, I don't know functional API. So Amit sir can give a better answer to this. Hello, Amit sir. I think he is not online.
Okay, okay. Might
Hello.
like
Hello. Okay, we can take this question on campus wire
yeah, sure.
because I don't know about functional API.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Ma'am,
Okay.
ma'am, I had a question, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah. When we are writing any sentence in the email, so it will predict the next word, right?
Yes.
So that depends upon, I mean, this count frequency of the word, or I mean, as you told, right, that formula was their count of x of I minus 1, sorry, w of I minus 1 given w of I divided by something in the
Uh,
whole corpus.
yes, these are the statistical language modeling. But nowadays we didn't use that statistical language modeling. That I just took here that just to understand how classical approach for language modeling and how now the deep learning is used for language modeling. So in your example, so they uses this RNN and LSTM to predict the next word.
Okay. So how many times these 2 or 3 words come together in the entire corpus? So according to that, it will predict, right?
Exactly. When we use classical models, then it predicts how much time this co-occurrences occurs in your corpus. But when we use recurrent neural network, then that times if there is some mismatch in ordering, still it will predict the next word. So we'll see how it does, because RNN have their memory cells, and in memory they can save uh, information for a uh, long term dependencies.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the block structure of RNN. So here you can see this rectangular box. You can see this is a hidden layer for your recurrent neural network, and this hidden layer has this block structure. So it takes xt as a current timestamp input. ht minus 1 is the output from previous layer. This is a bias term. So here again, it's in a standard neural network, what we do, we multiply your weight factor with the input factor, and then we apply some activation functions on it, right? So here one more term is added, that is ht minus 1, which is the output from previous layer, and we multiply this with this whs. Whs is again a weight factor, and it is shared across the number of words or number of terms in a sequences. So and its mathematical formula to calculate the hidden layer state, this ht is ht equal to sigmoid function whh into ht minus 1, that is this into this plus this into this plus this bias term, and then we apply this function. Now here this function is sigmoid function, sigma, and to calculate this y, output y, we use one more weight factor, that is why, and we multiply this why with this ht, and we add one more bias term for output, and it gives us output. So this is a mathematical insights of this block. Okay, and this is how it stores, or it can predict next word depending on its previous word, because we are providing information, previous information to this way. So now this ht minus 1 is a vector, so it contains a lot of information. It's not just a previous word. It might contains a whole paragraph, or it might contains a whole sentence. But in vanilla RNN, this is a type of vanilla RNN. So in vanilla RNN, we can store a previous information, but the model is unable to learn that information. We'll see how why it is unable to learn. But we can store a lot of previous information here, because ht minus is ht minus 1 is a vector, and vector could have any size. Okay, now back propagation through time. So in standard neural network, you have learned how to calculate the gradients, right? So to calculate the gradients, we pass the message backward, and that is nothing but in RNN we call it as a back propagation through time. Why through time? Because this we are providing this sequence to in a model, and this sequence depends on the timestamp. That is a propagation through time. So how to calculate the loss? So loss function is given by loss at timestamp t is equal to minus yt log of yt minus 1 minus yt into log of 1 minus yt. Now here y hat t is a predicted output and yt is the output which is we already know, because in training we know the label or we know the output, right? So this is already known output, and yt dash is predicted output. And this is a formula similar to cross entropy. And how to calculate the overall error? So overall error is just a summation of all these errors. And to calculate the gradient, we pass message backward. It is called as a back propagation through time. Here you can see. So this is formula to calculate the gradient at the time t, timestamp t. So which is equal to the gradient from t equal to 1 to t. So we, for example, to calculate the gradient of L4 with respect to W, then we have to go from this to up to last step. So this is equal to summation of k equal to 0 to 4. It will take this DL4 divided by DH4. Okay, I took directly DH4, but if you apply chain rule over this, it will be equal to DL4 upon DY4, then DY4 upon DH4. So here I have used DL4 upon DY4, and then it's a partial derivative, that is delta Y4 Y4 upon delta Y H4 it into again this delta H4 with respect to delta HK. Now HK is this H3, H2, H1 and finally H0 and then DW. Okay, so it's a chain rule. So to calculate gradient for this word, we need to pass message up to a first word. So here you can see example, the cat which already ate bunch of food was full and the cats which already ate bunch of foods were full. So in these two sentences, first one is correct, right? But RNN is unable to learn this previous layers, and that is why RNN might give you answer like were. And why this is because of vanishing gradient. So in previous lectures we means you already have seen this vanishing gradients and exploding gradients, right? So this same problems occurs in RNN also. So when we multiply these deltas or the gradients with other gradients, so gradient already have very smaller value. When we multiply smaller value with other smaller value, it will give again a smaller value. And when we go from this level to this level, it will give some value which is near to 0. And that is why these RNN are unable to learn its information from its previous layers. And this is a problem of vanishing gradient. Similarly, if your gradient has a very big value, then again there is an exploding gradient problem, because large value multiplied with large value, it will give again a large value, right? So but exploding gradient have solutions like cutting the gradients or keeping the gradients. But for this vanishing gradient for RNN, we came up with another solution, which is where we introduce a memory cells, and where we can store the previous information, and we, depending on the gates, we can update or we can reset that information. Okay, so we'll see that later, but just this is the problem with RNN. So any doubts in this?
Ma'am, I want to ask one question.
Yes.
So this back propagation through time, right? So why we are taking with respect to time, ma'am?
Yeah, because here you can see this is x1, x2, x3, and uh, up to xn, but each input we consider it at a timestamp t, because this is a loop. This is not a standard neural network. So it contains only one cell or only one block, but which we iterate over the time, right? So each iteration we consider it as one timestamp. That is why we call it as a over a time. And
Okay.
in standard neural network we have means we pass the message from output layer to input layer, but here the situation is different. We are passing message from some next layer to its previous layer. So there is difference. There is different in standard neural network and recurrent neural network. So recurrent neural network, here you have only one cell and which iterates over a time.
Right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
And see, these are not layers. Okay, so this is a single hidden layer. This represents a single hidden layer, but I have shown this architecture in a different timestamp. That is why you can see this different timestamp layer, but these are not layers. These are not different layers. This rectangular box is a single layer, which is we call as a hidden layer. This is a single output layer, and this is a single input layer. So each timestamp, it takes only one input, not a multiple inputs.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there are different types of RNNs. That is many to many, where your TX means number of inputs is exactly equal to number of outputs. So example, so where we can use this model or this type of model for a named entity recognition. So in named entity recognition, what we do, we classify or we tag the particular word, whether it's a person name, whether it's a location, or whether it's a organization, right? So for each word, you will have some output, some tag word, right? That is why it's a many to many model. Then again, it's many to many, but here your tx is not equal to ty. So in machine translation, let's consider your English sentence contains some 10 words, but if you convert it into a French, it might contain only 5 words for the similar sentence. So in machine translation, your input size is not equal to your output size. Then many to one, sentiment classification. So in sentiment classification, you might give input as one paragraph and it will classify whether it's a positive or negative. So it's a many to one. And one to many. So when you want to generate some sequence, so storyteller app or this music generation, so we can use this type of model for such applications. Then one-to-one model, so it generally use a traditional neural network, and its output is depend only on its input, not a previous layers. Now bidirectional RNN. So now till now we have considered only previous data. So it would be great if we consider a later data or the next data as well, right? So for example, we can take one example like he said teddy bears are on a sale. So when we consider from left to right, he said then teddy. So when we use this NER application, that is named entity recognition application, so it will predict this teddy as a person name, because that model doesn't know its letter words, right? So to cope up with such a type such a mistakes or such a problems, we can use this bidirectional RNN. So in bidirectional RNN, we can use previous words also and its next words also. And here is the architecture of bidirectional neural network. So here again you can see bidirectional. It is not direction from input to output and output to input. It's from this word, means next word to this word, and from first word to next word. You can see the direction. Okay. So RNN for machine translation. So machine translation, it is exactly same like a language model. Difference is only that in language model, for each input, you can predict its next output, right? But here you have to give first all the information, that is whole sentence, then only it can translate to other language. So that is the difference in machine translation. So you can see here we are providing x1, x2, x3, and then after taking these three inputs, then it converts it into a French language, or it's a German language. Sorry, it's a German to English. Okay. What are the advantages of RNN? So RNN have several advantages. They can process input sequence of any length. So we have already seen that its architecture does not depend on a fixed size of input, right? So we can take any input sequence of any length. The model size does not increase for a longer input sequence length. So model size does not increase because it's a iterative. So in programmatically, it's a single block and which we run in iterations. Computation for step T can use information from many step back. So theoretically, we can use a many step back information, but because of this vanishing gradient problem, it could not learn from previous steps. That is a different point. But theoretically, it can use the information from many step back. The same weight are applied to every timestamp of the input. So there is a symmetry in how inputs are processed. So we are using in each time step, we are using the same W, that is weight vector. So it reduces the parameter as well. And what are the disadvantages of RNN? We already saw, but the computation is slow because it is a sequential model and it cannot be parallelized. Then in practice, it is difficult to access information from many steps back due to a problem like vanishing gradient and exploding gradient. So recurrent neural network work just fine when we are dealing with a short-term dependencies. And that is when applied to a problem like, so let's consider one example. The color of sky is blue. So it doesn't matter whether its context means or the previous sentences. So it doesn't depend on its previous sentences. The color will always be blue. So the color of the sky is blue. Response such a type of sentences. But let's take another example, like I spent 20 long years working for the underprivileged kids in Spain. I then moved to Africa and there are multiple sentences in between. Then I can speak fluent. So now here, as he lived in 20 long years working for underprivileged kids in Spain, right? So obviously it might be a Spanish, but RNN is unable to answer this type of question or unable to predict this next word because it unable to learn its previous context. And this is because of vanishing gradient.
Kaveri had a question.
Now,
Could you go to the advantages of RNN? Advantages. Could you go to the advantages slide?
okay.
Yeah. In this, it says that it can process input sequences of any length. So I understand how the input would be given, But when we discuss that the back propagation will be done through time. So let's say in an example where we have two, example 1, example 2, one is of sequence 10 and one is of sequence 20. So this, and we're considering only one single layer. So only there are a fixed set of weights, and there are only one, let's say there are 4 set of weights, and these 4 sets of weights are shared across the time, right? Because
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So these 4 sets of weights are updated 10 times in the first example, and then they are updated 20 times in the next example. Is that correct?
Yes, but here you are taking the examples, means 10 and 20. We are actually giving this 10 and 20, that means 30 inputs in a sequence. So it doesn't matter whether your first example contains a 10 and second example contains 20.
So you would give directly 30 as one, or
Yes, because for example, if we want to give some paragraph, so we are giving just a sequence of words. So it doesn't matter whether it's a punctuation mark or whether it's a word.
okay.
So is
So-
it clear, or you have any other doubt?
Yeah, so basically, so then I'm imagining there would be a really long textual input and then only like one label. How would it learn this?
Okay. So for example, so in last lecture we took one example of an Harry Potter book, right?
Yeah.
So to generate a next story or a different story, we pass some 3 to 4 books information to model. Then we train model on that information or that stories, and depending on that story, your application will generate a next story. So for that we need to just pass one word, single word, and then depend on that single word it will generate a next story. But to generate that story or to predict the next word, it uses the whatever information he used for training.
Yeah, like I understand that part. So I'm not able to understand. Let's say I give one story as input, and I'm trying to do sentiment classification, sentimental analysis. So I get a positive or negative feedback, right? In some
Yes.
terms of metric. So I give a story as input. I have a ground truth. Maybe it's 0.5 positive. So
Okay, but for sentiment analysis we can't give a story as a input for training. So for sentiment analysis you should have a data like the reviews given by customers, and then it's output, labeled output, whether it's a positive sentiment or a negative sentiment.
okay, sure.
So it
Let's take reviews. So
okay.
reviews can be really long and really short, right?
Yes.
Let's say I give really huge reviews. So how will the network learn that which part uh, corresponded to a positive thing? Because I finally have a label. I have one label attached to like hundreds or
Yeah.
so many words. So I'm finding it hard. How can a model learn in that sense?
Okay, so learning, okay, learn means that it takes that sentence and it takes it output, and depending on that sentence it updates its weight, and in training it just checks its output is similar, means predicted output is similar to its actual output, and then that learning is happen through this gradient. So gradient, that is why we calculate the gradient, and then according to that gradient it updates its weight. And so when next time some unseen comment is shown, your model should predict the correct output depending on its training. And learning means nothing but updation of these weights, and finally when we say our model is fully trained, then that trained weight we use for testing or predictions.
Okay.
Ma'am, I have one doubt. In the previous network you showed, like how we process the input. like in the form of like in this like how we process the input, how we pass the input. If
Okay. So we saw word embeddings, right? So
yes,
neural network don't understand the text form. So we need to give it in the form of one hot encoding, or we need to give it in some other forms. We already saw other embedding forms also, right?
yes, like suppose I have a bunch of corpus and it has many words, so we pass one hot encoding of that word, each word in the uh, process input, right?
Yes. So what word embedding layer? So before there are three types of using word embedding. First thing is you can directly use word embedding on your corpus before giving it that input to your training data, or you can add one more layer in your network to embed the text information, and then you can pass this to the model. So in word embedding, what it does, it it takes the input and then it normalizes. Then we saw a different method, that is normalization, stemming, laminization, right? So it applies all this method and then it pass this information to next layer.
So let's suppose I have a corpus, big corpus, and I have 10,000 words in it. So I use various normalization technique and I reduce it to some around 100. So I have a 100 like
That
one
is
hot.
called vocabulary. That is a distinct word.
So I have a one hot encoding vectors of that word, like 100 vectors, right?
Yes.
So suppose I get some response from the network, and you also tell that network one network is concatenated with another network, like some other like input would be passed to the same network.
Okay.
So how does that work, like concatenation?
No. That time it doesn't share the text as it, or one hot encoding vector as it. It passes the output of your whatever the model, previous model. It passes the output of that model to next model.
Okay, so we pass the same 100 vectors in the next iteration, right? Or we should change based on the corpus, like
No. Okay. So here for the corpus, so we first train our model on the corpus, and then for prediction we use a different word.
okay. So while training, we don't like do that
Yes,
changing.
yes, yes.
Okay,
So we'll take that in a tutorial, but means like there are NLTK and other libraries. So that libraries already contain a vocabulary, so generic vocabulary, and we did not require to train that model. So we can directly use that text or the corpus, and you can directly use that in your applications.
okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. So gated recurrent unit. So so we saw in RNN there is problem of vanishing gradient and exploding gradient, and to solve this problem we use gated recurrent unit or LSTM, that is long short term memory. So RNN can theoretically capture long term dependencies. They are very hard to actually train to do this. And gated recurrent units are designed in a manner to have more persistent memory, thereby making it easier for RNN to capture a long-term dependencies. So you can see the difference in a block structure of RNN and block structure of GRU. So in this block structure, you can see we have added a gates, update gate, reset gate, and this HT is a new memory, this HT wave sign, and this HT, that is output, that is the hidden state. So what are the mathematical insights for this is it again takes a ht minus 1, that is the input output from previous layer, and xt is a current timestamp input, and then internally we use different weight vectors, that is wz, wr, ur, uz, then capital U, W, to calculate all this. So what is the use of update gate, reset gate, and how we calculate the new memory? So update gate, so first we'll see reset gate. So depending on reset gate actually allows us to store all the information which is coming from the previous layer, or it also allow us to diminish all the information which is coming from previous layer. Update gate allows us to update the information in your ht dash, this is the memory cell. So whether to pass this information, whatever the new memory which is calculated depending on your reset gate, whether to pass this new memory to next layer or just pass your previous hidden layer as it is to next layer. So these are the mathematical insight for this block, and these all are vectors. That is why we can store long-term information. Okay. So these are fundamental operations of GRU. There is new memory generation. A new memory HWAV T is a consolidation of a new input word XT with the past hidden state HT minus 1. Reset gate. The reset signal RT is responsible for determining how important HT minus 1 is to summarization of HT. Gate has the ability to completely diminish past hidden state if it finds that HT minus 1 is irrelevant to computation of new memory. Similarly, update gate. The update gate signal ZT is responsible for determining how much of HT minus 1 should be carried forward to next state. For instance, if ZT equal to 1, then HT minus 1 is almost entirely copied out to HT. Conversely, if ZT is equal to 0, then mostly the new memory HT is forwarded to the next hidden state. Okay. And what is hidden state? Again, it contains the information from the previous state. The hidden state HT is finally generated using the past hidden input HT minus 1 and new memory generated HT with the advice of the update gate. So here we have used update gate information. That is why we are saying that the hidden state is calculated with the advice of this update gate. So whether to update or not update. We'll see one example in LSTM so that you can understand why we are using these gates. Okay. So another alternative form of RNN is long short-term memory. So this is again a recurrent neural network, and which is a special neural network which is explicitly designed to avoid a long-term dependency problem. The LSTM does have the ability to remove or add the information to the cell state, carefully regulated by the structure called the gates. So using this gate, we can remove or we can add new information to this cell. So this CT here, we can say it as a cell state, or we can say it's a memory. And here you can see the it is exactly same as GRU, only two states are added, that is forget gate and output gate. And this input gate is similar to update gate in GRU. And the mathematical insights for this block is that we again here input is HT minus 1. One more input is added here is CT minus 1, that is the cell state of previous block or the previous time step, and xt is the input for the current time step, and this is multiplied with this weight vectors, the corresponding weight vectors for each gate, and then it is multiplied with this FTIT, and this FTIT, these are the inputs, then forget layer, then output layer, and here we use tanh functions to calculate this ht. Okay, so these are mathematical insight, but I will give one example so you can understand why we are using these different gates. Okay, so the new memory generation, this stage is okay, this stage generative stage we saw in GRU, it is exactly equal to the JRU. We essentially use the input word xt and the past hidden state ht-1 to generate a new memory CT, that is new memory cell, which includes the aspects of the new word xt. Now input gate, why you use a input gate? We see that the new memory generation stage doesn't check if the new word is hidden actually. Okay, it check if the new word is even important before generating a new word memory. So here you can see, here we have generated new memory, but this new memory generation does not depend on your previous input. So importance of your previous input. So importance of your previous input is calculated by this input gate, and then we use this previous input here to generate a final memory cell. So this is newly generated memory cell, and your final memory cell is depends on its input gate and depends on its forget gate. So but in GRU you can see here the new memory is depends on this reset gate. Okay, that is why we didn't uh, use here a input gate separately. So this is exactly same as a reset gate. So reset gate here and input gate in LSTM are same. Yeah. So let's take one example like Bob knows swimming. He told me over the phone that he had served the Navy for 4 long years. Now here you can see the important information in this sentence is only Bob knows swimming, and the next is he served Navy for 4 years, right? So he told me over the phone. This part is not important. So this what information should be stored in a memory cell? It depends on this input gate, and input gate extract only important information out of this. So it is important inform. Okay, and this process of adding some new information can be done via the input gate, and this is how we can generate this final memory depend on your input gate. Then forget gate, this gate is similar to as input gate, which determines determination of usefulness of an input word. Instead, it takes an assessment on whether the past memory cell is useful for the computation. So, so input gate takes care whether the previous information is how much of information is useful. But here forget gate takes care of how much past memory cell is useful to compute the current memory cell. And thus the forget gate looks at the input word and the past hidden state and produces the FT. It produces FT, like for example, Bob is a nice person, Dan on the other hand is a evil. So which information we should forgot? That is depend on this forget gate. So when this full stop came, so Bob is a nice person. So after this, because of this full stop, this gate forgot this information, and it assumes that this is a different context and the next coming context is different. That is why it just replaces this whole information with this new information, and this is how this mate forgets the previous information, because this model doesn't find this information as a important information for the next context. So it depends. It depends whether whether we should consider this full stop for forgetting context, or some other punctuation mark, or some other characters to forget the information. Then finally, memory generation. This stage first takes the advice from the forget gate and accordingly forgets the past memory CT-1. Similarly, it takes the advice of the input gate, it, and accordingly gets the new memory cell CT. It then sums these two results to produce the final memory. So here you can see. So depend on forget gate and input gate, it creates the final memory. And this is hidden state. So hidden state is your output gate. This is output gate and output OT into tan H of the final memory cell. So here it separates the memory cell and hidden state. So here they consider it is not necessary to pass all the memory information to the next state. So hidden, that is why they keep this hidden state and memory cell different. So depend on that, they can calculate memory cell depends on previous CT, and it calculates the hidden state depends on its previous hidden state. And yeah, in tomorrow's lecture we'll see this in detail. We will take one application for LSTM, and if you have any doubts you can ask now also, and if you have any doubts on this particular LSTM we will take that tomorrow. And there are some examples of this language modeling, like parts of speech tagging. So also in last lecture we saw what is parts of speech tagging. So it tags whether it's a verb, noun, compound, compositions, or some other parts of speech. So it gives a tagging for each word. This is one application of language model. Example of tags. So depend on different libraries, your tags might differ. So in NLTK, you might get different tags. In core NLP, you might get a different tags. In SPACY, you can get different tags. Okay? So these tags are depends on library or the corpus. And there are different challenges in POS also, means parts of speech tagging. So ambiguity that needs a context. So it is a quick read. So in first sentence, this read is a noun, but in second sentence, I like to read. So this read is a verb. So depends on context. These parts of speech tagging also changes. And differences in number of tags. So in different corpuses, there are different tags. Like Brown has 87 tags. British National Corpus has 61 tags. Then Penn Bank has 45 tags. Then application in named entity recognition. So here you can see. Okay, so again, language modeling is used for named entity recognition, and this is one example. So thereafter, John went to DMart. So John is a person and DMart is a place. And it is used for, we can use this text for searching or something. So, and also we can use this named entity recognition for to find the relationship between different objects, or we can use this named entity recognition to find the triples for a knowledge graph. So we have one lecture on knowledge graph also. So we'll see how this named entity recognition is used there. Then there are different challenges in named entity recognition also. Like take one example like Manish Jindal. Here, this is a person, but Jindal Steel. This is not a person. This Jindal is not a name of person, it's a thing. Mm, Again, here it is an ambiguity, and this ambiguity should be resolved, right? Common words that are also names, like do you want it with a curry or dry, and Tyler Curry. So here this curry is a name, but here is this curry is a thing. The ambiguity in a order abbreviation style. So Jindal and one is Department of Electrical Engineering. Then DiMarzo. These two are the different things. One is a person name and one is a thing person. Okay, so that's is about a language model, and in tomorrow's lecture we'll see how to construct a language model, and before that what are the pre-processing steps. Also we'll see how to add embedding layers in a model, and we will take uh, we'll take one example on sentiment analysis. We'll take data set, some raw data set, then we will apply all the embedding methods. We will apply tokenization, then staining, then we saw stop words, right? Then we see how to remove these stop words and how we we can clean this data set, and then we will use this data set, and then we will apply the vectorization, and then we will use that data set to input to our model. Okay. So any doubts in this? So this is a mathematical insights for this, and tomorrow we'll see the tutorial. Not a tutorial, but we'll see how practically we can use this.
Ma'am, in the
Yes.
memory cell, uh, in the memory cell, what the information is stored, it's important or like un- like unrelated information.
No, it's a important information. The information which is related to context, and that information we can use for a next prediction.
Okay, okay. So
So for
on the
example, so somewhere in like human story, and in this paragraph we have mentioned the person name, but next onwards we use he instead of person name. So but in somewhere we need that person name. That time your memory cell contain the information for that person, and then we can extract that information from this memory cell.
okay, okay. So basically, how much probability for the particular word, like it's store basically memory cell store that, like,
Yeah, in short, memory cell stores the context information. What is the context of your corpus? Not corpus, but what is the context of your given input,
okay,
previously given input,
yeah,
and it is for store for a long term dependency.
yeah. Okay, yeah,
So,
yeah.
for
Thank you.
example, I have given one example for cat, right? Or we can take this example. So I spent 20 years working for underprivileged kids in the city. So here this memory cell can store, so he spent 20 years in Spain. So this is the most important context. And
Ma'am,
then
your voice
we
is not
can,
clear.
hello,
Now it's clear.
hello.
Yes, now it's clear.
Okay, okay. So here we can I mean that memory cell can contain the information like he spent 20 years in Spain.
Yes.
And then this information we can use to predict the long term dependency, like this. I can speak fluent Spanish. This Spanish is depend on some far away previous information,
Okay, okay.
and that is not possible in RNN because RNN have a vanishing gradient problem. But because of introducing this new memory cell, we can uh, 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 we can cope up with this disadvantage of RNA.
So vanishing gradient problem like arrives like the weightage given to the particular word.
Yes.
Yeah, so if I may
Sir,
group block or LSTM block. Can you hear me?
no,
So
sir.
your voice is cutting.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look at a group block or an LSTM block, right? Imagine all these gates were not there and you just had a vanilla RNN, vanilla neuron, right? So problem is that when you are sending this sideways signal back in time, right? Forward in time for forward pass and back in time for back propagation through time, right? So it gets multiplied by the weights that are assigned to H. And because it will go through several steps in back propagation, the same block is repeated for multiple time steps, but only the inputs and outputs are same. So you are sending that signal sideways towards the left back in time, and it will keep getting multiplied by the same W again and again. So if you have a back propagation chain of 50 steps, you have in the partial derivatives, you will have 50 multiplications of W. So that can either explode the gradient or it can make the gradient depending
Yeah.
on
So that the gradient will very small, so that the weight updation will fail. Like,
so now with
Yeah,
you
exactly.
can actually you're not just simply multiplying with W, you are also multiplying with the partial derivative that is coming from the other side of the group. Okay, so think
okay.
about what's a partial derivative when you are multiplying two things, right? So AB and you are taking the derivative of that will be A dash B and then AB dash. Right?
Okay.
So basically you are multiplying the same derivative again and again. It will be multiplied with, it will be tempered with something else. So now
Okay.
that vanishing gradient can be better controlled. Can we see an group block? I want to explain one more thing. GRU or an LSTM block.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we want to store in the state or what we want to store, what comes out of a gate, these are basically softer versions of binaries. Okay, so you can have a state that is a binary 0 or a binary 1, but in this case we have a tan H, not a sigmoid. So it will be a -1 or a +1. And then the gates are between 0 and 1. It's like a step function on or off. But it's a softer version so that we can do gradient descent on them. Now, why your gate is a sigmoid and your state is a tan H? So the reason for that is, let's say if we replace the gate, the nonlinearity for the state also with a sigmoid, then in sigmoid you can have two zeros multiplying to give you a 0, or a 0 and a 1 giving you a 0, or a 1 and a 0 giving you a 0. So you would never know whether the state was erased, right? So you can either erase the state by not remembering it, by forgetting it, or you can remember it and not erase it, and so forth. That control will be lost. We will, if you get a 0, we don't know it. Is it because of the gate turning off or because the state itself was 0? Okay, so it's better to keep the state as -1 to 1, and then have explicit control over whether it will be passed on through a gate or not. It will be whether it will be multiplied with a 0 or a 1. The sign of the state will not reverse because of the gate. It will either be brought close to 0 or it will remain close to -1 or 1, whatever it was. So is that clear? Why one is a tan H and the other is a sigmoid?
Kind of, sir.
Right. So basically, your LSTM block will not have just one state. You can actually have multiple states.
Sir, again it's happening.
Correct. So you can actually have a state vector. So you can have multiple bits representing a particular state, or you can have multiple LSTM units in a single link.
Okay.
Okay, so basically your state is a complex vector that remembers everything about the history that it can remember for the last. If you want to translate something, right? There are languages in which the subject comes before object. There are languages in which object comes before subject. So when you are reading a sentence, your object has to be encoded somewhere, subject has to be encoded somewhere before you can start translating. So all that information has to be encoded in a state vector. So it's never a single edge. It's actually will be multiple LSTM or GRU units. That will be a state vector that will encode the entire essence of whatever it has, whatever sentence or yeah, usually it's just a sentence. It's or let's say a review. So whatever it has read and
So sir, in the place of tan h, if we use the sigmoid, so what will it cause? Like,
think about it this way, right? So if you so what is happening to this tan h, whatever ht that is coming out, right? Uh, that you can either retain it or you can forget it,
okay.
right? So there is a forget gate somewhere,
Yes, in LSTM.
right? And in GRUs it is just 1 minus the input gate, which works like a forget gate anyway.
Yes.
So point being that if you multiply two zeros or a 0 and a 1 or a 1 and a 0, you don't know what was the source of that erasure that made it 0. But instead, if you make that state -1 or 1, then you know that whether you wanted to erase the state or whether you wanted to remember it as it is. So the gating works better with 0 to 1, and the state binary binary or pseudo binary works better with -.
Yeah, got it, sir. Got it. Right.
So this great idea, this idea of letting something go or not letting it go, you will see that, or perhaps you already saw that in attention mechanisms in vision. You will see that again when we look at attention mechanism. So whenever you are trying to control the flow of information, you will have some sort of a gate or some sort of an attention, which will usually be something that is a scaling between 0 and 1 that multiplies with the original signal. So it basically controls the effect of the original signal, either suppresses the original signal or lets the original signal go as it is.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, one of student have a question like what is difference between functional API and this language modeling, like n-gram models? Means I couldn't answer because I don't know these functional APIs.
Even I don't know functional API.
Sir, I am the guy who like asked the same question.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kaveri. Any other questions?
Sir, I wanted to ask that when these HTs will change with respect to the new timestamps, which are corresponding to different words, right? And they will be learned for specific timestamps, if I'm not wrong.
No, only the weights will be learned. HTs will
Yeah.
be computed.
No. Sorry, the weights. So basically, different weights are learned for different timestamp, but how they are stored? Are they stored in different LSTM cells, or like how are they stored?
Think about it like convolution, right? In convolution, the same weights are learned for different locations of the image.
Yes.
Right. So here the same weights will be learned for different locations of the sentence.
Okay, so it's something like attention kind of a situation, right? Like
No, it's like a convolution. The entire group block is moving over time.
Okay.
Just like how a convolutional block moves over space.
So basically everything is extracting some different kind of a property, like
Yes.
how, okay.
Your
Cool.
inputs are changing because your word is changing. So your XT is changing with every word. and your previous state vector is also fed into this block ht minus 1 also changes, but the weights remain the same as t changes.
Okay, so and the more number of cells we have, that simply means like the number of extra feature maps that we had in the case of
Yes,
which basically
exactly.
means every other LSTM cell is learning a different property about the input space.
Absolutely. So some might be learning a verb, some might be learning the adjective, some might be learning subject, some might be learning object. We don't know how entangled that information is, but that is the idea.
So basically, this thing has a limitation that probably the number of parameters that are there for learning a particular kind of a property should be also dependent on some kind of like a function of number of characters in the input. So yeah, the further development must have paid some importance to those kind of things probably.
I'm not sure, but it probably depends on the complexity of the language. Some languages are inherently simpler than others.
Okay.
So, for example, in Hindi, we attach gender to even inanimate objects, whereas we don't do that in Bangla, for example.
So the more the complexity is, we simply increase the number of feature maps so that more features can be learned. So we deal with that in that way.
Yeah, I think it is like that. I'm not an NLP expert to say
Okay,
that
okay,
with
okay.
confidence.
Okay, but so that was a great intuition. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's thank Kaveri. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good night, everyone.